Hi, thanks so much for joining in. You're watching NDTV Profit. My name is Mathew and with me is Hersh Sayta. And I'm sure that you've got several questions about the capital gains tax regime that was rationalized by the finance minister in Budget 2024. You heard it right here on NDTV Profit in the run-up to the budget. And the man who spoke about the possibility of this happening is joining us right now to take you through these changes and how life changes for you. Pranav Sayta, who is National Leader, International Tax and Transaction Service at EY India, is joining in. Pranav, thanks so much for taking the time. While we're going to delve quite deep into several of the changes, I'm quite curious about one that has left me a little confused. Of course, I've gotten a little bit of clarity since yesterday, but this has to do with the treatment of property and the question mark around the treatment of long-term capital gains tax for property bought before 2001. And the clarification I feel is needed because the Revenue Secretary in comments made yesterday has said that the indexation benefit for these properties that were bought before 2001 will continue. How do you read this and how does this actually work?
Great. Sure, Alex. This has been a confusion ever since that particular interview surfaced and people saw it. So the way I look at it is that based on the finance bill, which has been introduced in Parliament yesterday, on a bare reading of it, what I can clearly gauge is that indexation is completely gone. So there is no concept of indexation once this bill becomes law, statute, and is passed by the Parliament. So the long-term capital gains tax will not now qualify for any indexation, but they have not touched another provision in the law, which essentially says that if I have acquired any capital asset before 1st April 2001, and I sell that asset today, then I am eligible to take either the actual original cost or the fair market value as on 1/4/2001 as a cost of acquisition while computing my capital gain. Effectively, therefore, if I had acquired an asset before 1st April 2001, any appreciation in the value of that asset up to 1st April 2001 is not taxable because that value is allowed to me as a cost of acquisition. If I had acquired an asset, maybe a property in 1980 at 100, the fair market value appreciated as on 1st April 2001, it was worth maybe 250. Then when I sell the asset today, I could either take my original cost of 100 or the fair market value as on 1st April 2001, 250. Obviously, I will take 250 as a deduction towards deemed cost. And my capital gain will be worked out accordingly. So if I sell the asset today at 1,000, 1,000 minus 250, 750 will be my capital gain, not 1,000 minus 100, my actual original cost. So 900 will not be my capital gain, but my capital gain will be 750 because I am allowed to claim a deduction of 250, which is the fair market value as on 1st April 2001. Hitherto, that fair market value was further allowed to be indexed till today. That I don't think is possible based on a reading of the finance bill. I think probably what the minister might have meant is that the appreciation in value between 1980 to 2001 April is in any case being allowed as a deduction, not strictly by way of an indexation, but because I am being allowed the fair market value as on 1/4/2001 as a deemed cost. Therefore, for all practical purposes, you are not getting taxed on the appreciation between 1980 and April 2001. And I think that's probably what he meant. It's hard to say for sure, but that's what I would guess he might have meant. Of course, if they want to, over and above this, give indexation, they could always do so. But that, I think, will require a change in the current provisions of the finance bill.
That's a fair point. One more mention that he made, Pranav, in that same interview that you're referring to, where he said that in the unlikely event, he didn't say unlikely, but I think that it's quite unlikely, where you have a property that you have acquired before 2001 and the value of that property has declined. And so therefore the fair market value in 2001, which you said was 250 in your illustration, if you had bought it in 1980, assume that it was 500, it's fallen to 250. Can you then, based on the way that you've explained it, choose to take the original? The 500
Yes,
value?
it is an option. Absolutely. You can take either the original actual cost of 500 or the fair market value as on 250. So in your illustration, a taxpayer would always choose to take 500 and not 250.
Okay.
That would happen in your illustration because he has an option. You are right.
Understood.
But indexation in any case is not available based on the current reading of the finance bill. Yeah, sorry, Harsh.
Understood. So, sir, just to try and cap this point off, first, indexation has been completely removed.
That's right.
That seems to be the clear intent, at least at the moment, the way the bill reads.
Right.
And secondly, for non-financial assets, you will get the advantage of indexation via fair market value as of 2001, or the cost, whichever is higher. And there has been no change to the latter part of what I just said.
That's right. That provision has always been there in the law.
Yeah.
There is no change in that provision in the current proposed finance bill. But yes, you would get the option to take either the FMV as on 1 for 2001 or the original cost. You are absolutely right.
Sure, sir.
No indexation at all.
Sure, sir. And so if the bill were to change, right now, if hypothetically now the way the bill is worded, it is what it is. But say if it were to change as per what the Revenue Secretary seems to be suggesting, is it logical to provide indexation benefit, especially when you already have a provision which is allowing the incremental value in your example from 1980 to 2001 to already get captured in some form, and thereafter you get indexation benefit and a lower rate of tax?
No, so I don't think they would allow between 1980 to 2001 any indexation. That seems out of question. The index starts from the base year 2001, which is 100. The base year of index is 100, and that is in 2001 April. So if they do choose to allow indexation, I would feel they would allow between 2001 and the date of transfer, which is today. And the indexation on that would be the FMV as on 2001 or the original cost of 1980, but indexed from 2001 till today, because the index base year itself is 2001. I don't think that is intended, given that they have reduced the tax rate for these assets from 20% to 12.5%. That seems to be in substitution of the indexation benefit that was hitherto available. So I don't think that is intended, but if they do want to grant something, and if that's what he meant, then the finance bill will need to be changed, and indexation could be allowed from 2001 till today on these particular assets. Either you take the original cost or you take the FMV at your option and then index it from 2001 till today.
But
Otherwise, you'll have to even change the index base year, which I would think even lesser possibility that they ever intended.
And that would have to go into a revised bill, and the print would have to change effectively for that to happen.
That's right.
I'm just curious what you make of this new structure, because this falls very close to the three buckets that you had suggested in your conversation with me a few days before the presentation of the union budget. There are effectively two buckets now: financial assets on the one hand and non-financial assets and unlisted securities in another. It's quite a simple reading of the regime, according to me.
That's right. So they have really simplified it, I must say. I wouldn't deny that at all. So the way I look at it is in very simple terms. For listed equity shares, STT paid, equity mutual funds and REIT InvIT units, the short-term capital gains tax rate has been increased from 15% to 20%. That is bucket one. And for all other assets, short-term, it's a normal slab rate, regular income, whatever the tax rates apply. So that's very simple. Listed equity shares, STT paid, as well as equity mutual funds, REIT InvIT units, short-term capital gains tax rate, which was 15, goes up to 20%. For all transfer of shares, etc., on or after 23rd July 2024. Short-term capital gains tax, normal rates for all other assets other than listed equity shares, equity mutual funds, REIT InvIT units. When it comes to long-term capital gains tax, for listed equity shares, STT paid, equity mutual funds and REIT InvIT units, it has been increased from 10% to 12.5%. That's a disadvantage, but that is a second bucket where the long-term capital gains tax rate has been increased. On all other assets, other than these, the long-term capital gains tax rate has actually been decreased from 20 to 12.5%, but indexation has been taken away. So that's the simple bucket. Listed equity shares, equity mutual funds, REIT, InvIT units, short-term rate 15 to 20 increase. Other assets, short-term rate same, normal slab rates. For listed equity shares, STT paid, equity mutual funds, and REIT InvIT units, long-term rate increased from 10 to 12.5. That's a disadvantage. Short-term rates reduced from 20 to 12.5, but indexation gone. So it might be to your advantage, it might be to your disadvantage, depending upon whether the benefit of the indexation, which now goes away, would have outweighed the 7.5% tax saving that you get by reduction in tax rate from 20 to 12.5. But the intention seems simple. Maybe you gain in some, maybe you lose in some, but let's do away with complexity. Let's make life simple. No indexation, 20 to 12.5 reduced long-term capital gains tax rate on all other assets. There's only a slight nuance, and that is for non-residents on unlisted securities, the long-term capital gains tax rate has increased from 10 to 12.5 by this budget. And finally, the period of holding for all listed securities, including REIT InvIT units and equity mutual funds, the 1 year period for determining the threshold of long-term applies. For all other assets, irrespective of the nature of the asset, 2 years is the threshold for becoming long-term, with one big catch, and that's the third bucket. Debt mutual fund units acquired before 31st March 23, market linked debentures, unlisted debentures, bonds, etc., are always short term. So debt mutual fund units, market linked debentures, and unlisted debentures, bonds, unlimited period for becoming long term. There's no period. They are always regarded as short term.
Understood. So my last question, of course, with regard to the streamlining, it seems like from a streamlining perspective, it's been ironed out in a way in which maybe this structure will be sustainable for a longer period of time. Just one little anomaly, which in my view, they've probably not addressed. Please give us yours. With regard to LTCG, when LTCG on listed equities was exempted, STT was introduced. That hasn't been withdrawn in any fashion yet. Do you believe that that withdrawal is necessary? Firstly, your view. And second, anything else you believe is a miss from at least a capital gain standpoint?
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. So your questions are very pertinent. STT was introduced with the express objective of substituting long-term capital gains tax or other the exemption that was granted on listed equity shares at that particular point of time. That was the very objective of STT being introduced. Over a period of years, STT has really skyrocketed in terms of collections. So in the last maybe 6-7 years, from 2017-18 till today, STT collections have gone up dramatically from less than 12,000 crores. The projection for this year is much more, but the first 3 months itself have contributed 16,000 crores. So that's the kind of increase. But I guess what the government seems to feel is that even thereafter, there is a discounted rate of long-term capital gains tax, which is 10%, now sought to be increased to 15%. And therefore, it's okay to live with both. But what that effectively means is that when it comes to listed instruments, long-term listed equity shares, they bear a 12.5% long-term capital gains tax plus an STT. On the other hand, other long-term capital gains get 12.5% without an STT. Now that seems to be a little incongruent. I'm not too sure this could have been intended. The idea was to reduce the long-term capital gains tax rate on all other assets from 20 to 12.5 because indexation is going away, which is welcome, fine, because if indexation is not there, you need a reduced rate from 20%. But what that has ended up doing is that on listed equity shares, which seems to be the instrument which the government wants to wants to promote the most, wants to incentivize the most, equity mutual funds, which it wants to incentivize the most, REIT InvIT units. The long-term capital gains tax rate is the same 12.5, but it additionally bears an STT obligation, which other assets, long-term assets don't. So that's the anomaly. If you feel there is one, I do feel there is one, but I don't see the STT going away. It's just bringing in so much collection of revenue that I'm not sure the government would be keen to do away with it.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And I think that covers all of the bases with regard to the capital gains tax and simplification. And thanks so much for simplifying it even further for us. Pranav, pleasure having you on the program as always.
Pleasure. Thank you.
And viewers, do stay tuned. From Harsh and myself and the team that put the show together, thank you so much for watching. There's more coming up over the course of the day, and this is NDTV Profit.